Hi, good afternoon everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar. My name is Richard Hughes, and today we're going to be taking a look at the latest release of our core P2P product from Proactis, which is Proactis P2P 2017. So as I said, my name is Richard Hughes. I'm Director of Services and Technology here at Eclipse, and this session was organized by Emma. I'll put our contact details up again at the end of the session, so if there's any questions or follow-ups after the webinar, you can get in touch with us on these contact details. So very quickly, what we'll do is we'll try and keep this relatively to the point, and first of all we'll just go through a couple of slides, just talk a little bit about some of the highlights of this release. This is a big release from Proactis. It's been quite a while since we've had a major release of P2P, the last one being in 2014. So there's quite a lot of new functionality that has gone into this release. There's some exciting new things with regards to the user interface, some core functionality changes, some enhancements, and there's a lot of things that have changed under the bonnet as well. So from a technology perspective, a lot of things have really been improved upon in this release, so we're really quite excited about it. So we'll just talk a little bit about that, and then we'll jump into the product itself, have a look at some of those changes in the functionality and the user interface, take a look at those in a little bit of closer detail, and then finally, as I said, we'll wrap up with any questions and answers. So as I mentioned, the highlights for me, certainly of this release, they really fall into a number of key categories. So first of all, I mentioned that there is a number of changes with regards to the user interface in P2P 2017. What has happened is that Proactis have decided to try and streamline everything, really refresh the user interface, make it as crisp and as intuitive as possible. And this will be the foundation for all future experiences and across all of the Proactis applications. And the idea is to make the Proactis experience a unique end-to-end common user interface experience across all of the products, whether that's P2P, source to contract, reporting, user management, anything else. Additionally, another key highlight of this release is the enhanced reporting module. So this is a fully web-based report module, and it also handles report scheduling, delivery of reports via email, and again, this is consistent with the enhanced user interface and works across all of the applications within the suite. There has been, as I said, some changes under the covers. There have been a number of performance enhancements, or certainly some technology changes, as a result of which certainly the performance of the web application itself has been significantly improved. There's been some changes. A lot of the underlying technology has been upgraded to use the latest versions of .NET. In addition to this, we also have simplified system administration, some simplified management of key areas of the system, and that is done through the effectively what is the web version of the Proactis management console. So some of the key management of the system can now be done directly from within the browser, eliminating the need in some cases for the Proactis management console to be installed on end users' machines. So this, again, the idea is really just to make things easy to manage, make the system easy to manage. It can be managed effectively from anywhere because it's in the browser, and again, this is transparent to end users. Also, we have the introduction, or certainly easier access to the Proactis marketplace. So this is online catalogs, access to online suppliers and contracts, and when searching for items to add to purchase orders, it's now a lot easier to jump straight into any configured marketplace and add online items directly to the orders within P2P. And then finally, going forward, there'll be a common and hopefully more agile approach to upgrades and introduction of new functionality across all of the products. The idea is that there'll be consistent quarterly updates for all applications, and again, some of the tools to deliver these have been improved upon. So again, for people on on-premise, and whether they're actually on-premise or using the hosted solution, the idea is that these updates and enhancements will feed through on a regular basis, and you'll be able to keep your application and installation up to date, but at the same time take advantage of new functionality that's going to be delivered through patch sets and enhancements. Okay, so without further ado, perhaps what we'll do is we'll jump straight into the web application itself, and we'll go through and have a look at some of those enhancements in a little bit more detail. So I'm just going to switch across onto the application server. So we can see here, first of all, we're going to be using standard authentication, so username and password. But it's important to note that, of course, the usual Windows authentication can also be used, a single sign-on, and there's also some additional single sign-on options available in the latest release. Options to log on using other SSO providers such as SAML2. So here we're going to be using standard authentication, username and password, just simply because I'm going to be switching between a few different roles. But again, hopefully you can see already just from the login screen that the user interface has been significantly cleaned up, tidied up, and hopefully made a little bit clearer. So I'm just going to log in as a regular user. And we can see a number of things have changed with regards to the navigation. What has happened is that the main menus, whilst being relatively unchanged, the menu options across the top again have been tidied up, grouped together, improved text in the tooltip. So, for example, purchasing, and then the sub-menus underneath, expenses, reports, admin. So all of those things have really been tidied up. What has changed significantly is the secondary menus. So if we go back in and we have a look perhaps at the orders homepage, and maybe we jump in and create an order, we can see that the secondary navigation that was previously down the left-hand side of the screen has now all been moved up to the top right of the toolbar, just to make things a little bit cleaner, and just given some graphical icons just to make it easier to understand exactly what context-sensitive options are available to us, as opposed to having a lot of text-based options down the left-hand side of the screen. So we can see, again, depending on where we are, if we're in a purchase order, we have a number of context-sensitive options that are available to us, and again, in the other menu, we've got some further options in there. So if we jump into the items, for example, if we want to search for an item to add to the purchase order or navigate, all of those things are now just really grouped together under the secondary navigation options on the top right of the screen, as opposed to being down the left-hand side. What has also changed is the user details. So whereas previously the user details were perhaps a little bit hidden up in the top left, and again they were largely text-based, these user details are now moved across onto the top right-hand side of the screen, and from here users can access their default department, so we can see who they're logged in as. If necessary, they can switch between different departments if they have access to multiple departments. And what users can now also do from this little tab across the top right is they can change their own password. So you can change your password directly from within the drop down the top right of the screen. So again, previously this was something that was perhaps a little bit buried within the menu options. So that's just been brought forward and cleaned up a little bit. The questions functionality, again, has been moved across up to the top right of the screen for easy access. So any outstanding questions that users have open from other people within the organization, they can access those via a single click, and they can respond to those questions. If I log in as a different user, I'll just show you the response to those questions. So we can see here any questions that require a response are indicated by the little icon on the message icon on the top there, with a number of outstanding questions to be answered. So again, people can see at a glance if they've got questions to respond to. So if we just jump back in, the homepage layout remains largely unchanged, although we can see that the icons for various things have been improved upon. So just to make things again a little bit more visually appealing and not so text heavy. Some of the most of the menu options on the main screens have now got icons as well. The search screen, for example, if we go in and search and we want to add something to a purchase order, again, we can see if I just search for laptop, again, just some visual cues on the items returned in the search results. We can see we have color coding to indicate different types of items. So we've got dark blue for contract items, we've got lighter blue for supplier items, yellow for items that are in stock, and we've also got pink for generic items. So again, people can see at a glance, just distinguish between the different types of items returned in the search results. On stock items, for example, you can check the inventory just by clicking on the little icon, and you can check the stock balance before you even add that to your order. And again, the pop-ups in terms of the fonts and the visual layout of those have been cleaned up and improved somewhat. With regards to the layout of the main screens themselves, again, depending on which version you're coming from, this may or may not look radically different. Certainly from P2P 2014, which was the previous version, again, there's been some minor enhancements here, really just to emphasize the key information on the screen. If you're coming from a version older than 2014, then this will probably look significantly different. But again, the idea has been really just to make sure that all of the information is easy to find and within easy reach of people entering information on the screen. So again, if we drop down into the lines on an order, we can see again we've got the visual coding for the line item copy, for nominal copy. It's just been improved somewhat. Again, the color coding has been made a little bit more easy on the eye, and the colors themselves, of course, can be changed. In this version, we can switch between different themes, so users have the ability to switch between different color themes within the application from within their own admin settings. Other things that have changed, small changes. If we go in and let's just go very quickly. Let's just put a couple of items in the cart. With regards to the messages that appear on the screen, the status messages, again, these have been changed and they've been color-coded, so you'll see messages that get displayed across the top of the page relating to status information. Previously they were all maybe a little bit nondescript. Again, these have been somewhat cleaned up and color-coded just to make them a little bit more easy to understand. And we can also change the position of the status messages that come up on the screen. They can be switched either from the top or they can appear down the right-hand side in pop-up boxes. So in terms of the user interface, as I said, generally it's been really sort of cleaned up and improved, and the idea being that it's really easy to find all of the information you want within a couple of clicks. One of the other things I mentioned that is significantly different from a previous version is some of the user management functions, some of the system administration functions have now been moved into the web interface. So previously, pretty much all of the management of the application was done through this user interface in the Proactis management console. Now that can still be done, and again, anybody who has access to the management console, this can be made as simple or as complex as is necessary, but it allows an administrator to administer the entire installation from a single user interface, a single console. However, if we don't want to install that console on on a number of machines, again, maybe just to reduce the overhead in terms of system admin, or maybe there is somebody who's responsible for certain areas of the system administration, they want to be able to do that from anywhere. What we now have the ability to do in the latest version is to manage key areas of the system from directly within the web application. So if I was to log in as a system administrator, and I jump into the relevant company, I can see across the top, in addition to my own admin functions, I also have the system control option in the menu. Now, the system control option effectively allows me to manage, as I said, or to carry out some of the same admin functionality that is available in the management console, but to do this from directly within the web browser. So at the moment, the key areas of functionality available in the web PMC are users, so we can manage the creation of users. So if we go in, we can edit all of the things we can do pretty much with any user within the PMC. We can now do that directly within the browser, so we can change users' details, reset their passwords. We can edit the roles that they have access to. So we can go in and we can change properties in relation to which functionality they have access to within purchase ordering. We can change any user reference fields. We can change which authorization pools they're associated with. We can update the message schedules, change their authorization hierarchy. Pretty much anything to do with the user management that can be done in the management console, we can now do that directly from within the browser as well. You can also see here we can copy this user. So again, just to speed up the administration of the system, we can copy users directly from within the browser. We can also maintain supplier information directly within the browser as well. So if we wanted to change maybe supplier reference fields or update something in relation to a supplier address, again, we can do that directly from within the browser, assuming we have the correct access. So in here we can search across all of the activities within the system. So if we wanted to go in and edit something in relation to Alpha Stationery, we can go in and do that. We can change options for this supplier. Do they receive purchase orders automatically via email? Default branch addresses, default accounting elements, all of those kinds of things can be configured directly from within the browser. So this is very, very useful, and it really cuts down on the administration required from IT departments in terms of maintaining multiple installations of the management console, and also bearing in mind that installations of the management console themselves need to be kept up to date with patches. The idea behind moving some of the administration into the browser is really just to eliminate the need to maintain different versions of the software on different machines for system administrators, and really just to speed up some of the core system administration tasks. Other things that can be done in the web PMC, we can look at some of the key, we have some key utilities in there relating to troubleshooting, connectivity, error logs, interfaces with the finance system, so even things such as the application hooks, so the coding required for the export of files for integration into the finance system, all of that can actually be done directly from within the browser. We can also look at things like authorizations in progress. So as an administrator, you get a complete global overview of all of the orders, documents, invoices in the system. So if for whatever reason this document that is stalled somewhere within the workflow, that can actually be blocked or reallocated directly to somebody else within the workflow, and that can be done within the browser without the need for going into a separate tool to do that. So the idea is that all of the changes, all of the core functionality, relevant for maintaining and keeping your system up and running, the vast majority of that, or certainly a lot more of that, can now be done directly from within the browser. So in addition to system administration, we also talked about, from a technology perspective, we have some key enhancements behind the scenes. As I said, we made some changes with regards to the technology used by P2P, so this means that the performance of the web application is now a lot better. So you should hopefully see improvements with regards to the speed, both of loading and processing documents. There have also been some changes, specific changes perhaps in relation to the way in which, again, just the things to help make the management of the installation easier. So some of the things that were previously a little bit out of the way or a little bit complicated to administer, again, have been cleaned up. So things like the new database manager, which allows you to just get a global overview of all of the databases in the P2P installation. You can see that all at a glance. You can see exactly which databases are on which version, and if necessary, you can add or switch on additional functionality, such as the imaging database for the scanned documents repository. You can switch on advanced reporting, and you can also create new P2P databases directly from within this utility. So again, that just sort of eliminates some of the manual steps that administrators had to go through previously to create test databases, things like this. So it just brings everything into, everything database related into one user interface. The server administration functionality as well has been sort of cleaned up and tidied up a little bit. So again, within the server administration, we have the ability to, again, look at some core settings such as emailing the websites, core application settings. All those things, again, have just been sort of harmonized in the new server administration interface. One thing I missed actually in the system control, you can also look at things like your license information. You can check your license information directly from within the web browser itself. So if you want to find out exactly how many licenses you're using, the system administrator again can do that directly from within the browser. Okay, a couple of other key pieces of functionality updates, enhancements that have been introduced in P2P 2017. In relation to orders, one of the pieces of functionality that has been requested by a number of organizations was the ability to raise purchase orders on behalf of other users. So you may recall that in the expenses module, one of the key pieces of functionality we have is we have the ability to enter expense claims on behalf of other expense users. So for example, as an employee, maybe I'm a PA or an admin assistant to somebody, I can actually create an expense claim on behalf of somebody else within the organization. So I can create, maybe as an end user, I can create an expense claim on behalf of a manager. And one of the key changes that was introduced in P2P 2017 is that a similar functionality has now been introduced on the ordering side. So this means that if users have the correct permissions and the permissions are defined within the order entry role, then you can see that we now have the ability for users to raise purchase orders on behalf of other users. So what this means is a kind of proxy entry for purchase orders. So this was something that was heavily requested and has now been introduced in P2P 2017. So what this does is it effectively, if this role is switched on for a given user, it allows them to enter purchase orders on behalf of somebody else. It guides them through the process of determining which user to raise an order on behalf of. It makes sure it's raised against the correct department, and then obviously goes through the relevant workflow for the authorization. And all of the validation, so for example, validation on the nominals, any mask lists, custom validation, all of that of course occurs in the context of the emulated user, not the currently logged in user. And another functionality that's been introduced on the ordering side relates to favorites, and again this was something that was brought across from the expenses side. So if we log in as a user in expenses, one of the things that's always been available in the expense part of the system is the ability to create a list of commonly used items. So the most commonly used items, my favorite expense items that can be just saved in a list and then quickly dropped into any expense claim. So one of the queries that was often raised is, well, why can't you have a similar functionality on the ordering side? And that has now been introduced. So on the ordering side, users can now create their own favorites within purchase orders as well. So the way that that's done is if a user goes into their admin section, they can set up a list of favorite items. Suppose to maybe select a couple of items here. And what that allows me to then do is if I create a purchase order, within the purchase order I have in the item section the ability to add items from my favorites in much the same way as I could do on the expenses side. So that was something that was perhaps a little bit inconsistent across the different modules, so that functionality is now available in purchase ordering as well. And of course what that means is in the case where we're using proxy entry, or a user is raising a purchase order on behalf of another user, again all of the item favorites, if I create a purchase order on behalf of for example my manager, I would have access to my manager's favorite items, so I can do that, so I can carry out a proxy entry completely as if I was the emulated user. On the invoicing side, another interesting piece of functionality is the ability to reassign documents from a different template. So an example of this would be if an invoice is incorrectly registered as a particular document type, after it's been associated with a purchase order, it's actually been quite difficult, if not impossible, once a document has been incorrectly registered against the wrong invoice template, to date there's been no way of easily transferring this onto an alternative template, and effectively what the user had to do was to cancel the invoice and re-register this. So what can now happen, and in order to save time rekeying data, is that it's now possible to change the invoice template from one to another, again assuming that template that is applicable to the same supplier, and you can remove any inherited information from the old template and then add the equivalent information onto the new template. So again, this is something that's defined at user level in the invoicing role. So if we look at the one of the accounts payable users, for example, we can see in the invoicing role we have in here the ability to reassign registered invoices to a different template, which means that if I incorrectly register an invoice against the wrong template, I can just now simply reassign that to the correct template through the web interface. Again, on the invoicing side, certainly the icons and the contextual menu options have been tidied up somewhat. So if we have a look at any document, let's just go in and search for an invoice. Let's just bring up one of these, for example. We have things such as the related icon. So this is available also on orders, but if we look at the related icon, that will show us at a glance on an invoice, any related orders, any related credit notes. And we also have the history, so again, just some consolidation of the menu options, so things that were previously sort of listed out separately on the left-hand side have now just been grouped together, so we can see document history on any document. So in the case of an invoice, that would maybe be the the invoice history, exactly what happened. So when it was registered, who registered it, was saved, any changes made, some discrepancies were generated, they were sent for resolution, discrepancy resolution took place, so all the discrepancies were resolved, invoice was released for payment, and then was posted into the finance system. So from a single function within any given document, you can see the entire history, an audit trail of exactly what has happened to that document within the system. So we can see all of the different changes that were made on that invoice within the system. So yeah, from an auditability and transparency perspective, it's just giving you a bit more detail, but also detail that's easy to reach within a couple of button clicks. So again, those related functions and the history functions are also available on the ordering side. So if we were to go in, have a look at any submitted purchase order, let's have a look at some orders, and maybe look at my orders only. Just find one that's got part invoiced. So we can see again here on this one, any related invoices, all of the audit trails available, so we can see all of the invoices associated with this purchase order within a single screen. So we mentioned the marketplace. So again, just a very quick example of that. So if we go back and have a look at, just have a look what we got here. So maybe on the third-party orders, what this allows us to do is it allows us to reach out into, for example, online catalogs. So if we were searching across a range of online suppliers, we can just search either based on the item description, item code, maybe based on the supplier, but we can search across all of our online catalogs and contracts, and we can then retrieve relevant items, add those to our basket, go through the necessary checkout options online, and then where applicable, that will return the item straight into our purchase order within P2P. So it's just making different kinds of ordering available again at within a single click, giving us access to all of those items, whether they're items we have in stock, on-premise, local catalogs, online catalogs, punch out, just making sure we've got access to all of those things in a single place. So again, we still have the punch out options, for example, so we can go in, punch out to, in this case, Lyrico, our stationery suppliers. If we wanted to go out, have a look at something online with our online stationery supplier, again, we can punch out to their online catalog, go through the checkout process on their website, return the items directly into the order within P2P with all of the correct pricing, description, and all of that information added straight on. So again, you just go through, follow the online checkout process, and then when you check out, it's just going to drop those items straight into your order within P4P. Okay, so there are quite a lot of other things as well. So there's a lot of detailed options that have been added into this release. So with all sorts of things. Things on standalone invoices. There's a lot of changes. This was really just to give you a flavor of some of the things. So as I said, the main changes really in this release have been around the user interface, improvements in the technology, the advanced reporting module, and of course the enhanced system administration through the ability to access the system control or the web-based PMC, allowing you to manage key aspects of the deployment directly from within the browser without needing to install a management console on your machine. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of an introduction to some of the things in the latest release of P2P version 2017. What I would encourage you to do is get in touch. There's release notes for this release that you can request directly from us. So if you want to know in detail exactly what is included in this release, then I would encourage you to contact either myself or Emma. But maybe what we can do now is if there's any questions, I'll ask Emma to open up the lines and see if there's any questions that anybody has, then we can deal with those, and we'll just wrap up the session, the last 5 minutes, with some questions and answers.
Thank you, Richard. Please can anyone let me know if you have any questions, either by raising your hand or by typing a question in on your keypad. Thanks. Question has come in from Simon, who would like to know, when is this release available, Richard?
So this release is available right now, actually. So this is released at the beginning of March this year, so at the beginning of this month. It's gone through testing and is now available to all customers. So if you're on an older version and are interested in upgrading, and I would say get in touch, because we can discuss that in more detail. But in terms of the release date, it came out, I think it was the 8th of March, so it's been around for a few weeks, but it's definitely available right now.
No further questions at the moment.
No. Okay, well, thank you is all I can say. So what I would like to do, as I said, if you have any questions, if you'd like to see more of the latest release, so more detail around the latest release, then please don't hesitate to contact either Emma or myself. And thank you very much again for attending this afternoon. Thank you.